Chapter 3. "For Christ's sakes, Bill," Marcy huffed, standing on her toes to peer into the window of the dilapidated woodshop. "It looks empty." "It's not empty." Bill hopped a bit to get a view over her shoulder. "I think I see some shit in there." "Shit is right." Marcy rolled her eyes, sighing dramatically as she stepped back. The trip to Uncle Phineas's property had been draining. An hour-long drive north, followed by a 30-minute wait for the lawyer from whom they had picked up the keys to their new property. It seems there was very little information to be had about Bill's great-uncle's death, only that a natural gas explosion had leveled the very house Bill had inherited and all contents therein, including Uncle Phineas. There was still a portion of the garage, a woodshed, and some sundry items left, the lawyer mentioned after an awkward pause. Bill and Marcy had gone directly from his offices to view their bounty, discovering a crater where the house once stood, wood and metal shrapnel decorating the mangled pine trees of the yard and the tilted shell of the garage. A few 100 feet away stood the woodshop, completely intact. From all reports, by this what local gossip the lawyer's assistant could dredge up from memory while they waited, Uncle Phineas had let the house go over the years anyway, disappearing for months while leaving it in disrepair, reappearing without warning for short stays before he left again on purported business trips, though no one knew what these business trips could possibly be. Antiquing, perhaps? It remained a mystery. His behavior had become even more eccentric in the end, until he dropped out of society altogether, spending his last months doddering about his woodshop, ignoring calls and texts while the house fell in around him. And yet, as the Finkles swung the door open, they saw the woodshop was almost curiously empty. The plank floors were dusty and littered with rusting paint cans, baubles, and scraps, but there was nothing of value inside, except... And then, as the gray clouds overhead cleared for just a moment, Bill spotted it. There in the very back of the woodshop, standing alone and majestic in a hazy strand of sunlight, was an exquisite, towering grandfather clock. Bill remembered the clock from his childhood visits. He could have shouted in delight, but settled for a smirk. "That's it?" Marcy groaned. "The whole drive for that? A crappy clock?" As if on cue, the clock began to chime. The dust in the room shimmered and Bill fell silent. The woodwork of the clock gleamed with carved etchings of forests and stars, moons and suns. It appeared to Bill that the images vibrated with energy as the clock chimed, the air coming to life around them for just a moment. Whatever it was, it made the hair on Bill's arms stand up. Marcy ran her hands over her chapped elbows, shivering violently. The clock peeled on. In their discomfort, they didn't notice the envelope lying on the floor to the right. The envelope with the big block letters that clearly read, "Bill Finkle, you must read this first." Needless to say, as Bill stepped on the oversized envelope without a care, kicking it aside in the process, he did not. "It looks like a Bavarian nightmare," Marcy insisted once they got the clock home. "I don't understand what your uncle was thinking." Bill gazed fondly at his inheritance, remembering his uncle spending inordinate amounts of time tweaking the inner workings of the grand old timepiece, telling him on more than one occasion, "When you're older, this will go to you. Your brother hasn't shown any interest like your father and his, but I have a feeling you might appreciate it." When Bill hadn't seemed sufficiently impressed, Phineas continued, adjusting several of the dials. "It's an old family heirloom, very old. But Bill, don't ever touch these dials when I'm not around. Do you understand? It could be dangerous." At the time, Bill didn't understand. He still didn't, and he wouldn't for just a short time more. What he did understand was that he didn't want to waste this beauty in an unair-conditioned shed like his uncle. He wanted to enjoy it, flaunt it, show it to his neighbors, the Sanders, for a start. He just had to figure out how to wind it up and get it working. What could be so hard about a wind-up clock? Wasn't a stick shift, though it did appear more complicated than your average timepiece upon first review. There were at least 5 different dials set within the face, in addition to the 3 hands of the clock. It was impossible to know what each dial controlled. Second, minute, hour, day, month, year? What more was there? Regardless, he loved to see the grand antique in the formal dining room. It looked downright regal. To justify this well-debated installation, he'd spent the last 2 hours painstakingly polishing each carving gracing the sturdy wooden body of the clock. Each star, each sun and half-sun, every moon and quarter moon, dusting and tweaking a dial here or there on the face of the great thing while poking around. Eventually, Marcy called Bill away for garden chores, and he took one last, defiant glance at his new possession, promising himself he'd figure out how to set it properly tomorrow.